Coming up on UCF Nightly News, rising healthcare premium costs are impacting the wage growth in the U.S. We'll show you how voting this election season could help change that and what those at the UCF College of Medicine are doing to help.
Central Florida is known for being important in presidential elections, but we'll tell you which group of voters may have an outsized influence.
And find out what happened during yesterday's debate.
Nightly News starts now.
Welcome to Nightly News. I'm Monica Sealey.
And I'm Lexi Vazquez. Today is Friday, October 23rd, 2020. Here is your coronavirus update. Okay. UCF officials report nearly 800 positive student cases since the start of the semester, with over 80 new cases since last Friday. Statewide, as of today, the Florida Department of Health reports over 760,000 positive cases and more than 16,000 deaths. And nationally, Johns Hopkins University reports nearly 8.5 million cases and more than 220,000 deaths.
Last night's presidential debate gave the candidates one final shot at persuading undecided voters. Social media users are praising moderator Kristen Welker for keeping the rivals under control and effectively leading the conversation. This comes after the rocky series of debates left viewers wanting less interruption from the debaters. Supporters from both parties are saying last night's debate was a refreshing change of pace. With room for more topics than usual, like healthcare, foreign election interference, and 500 million children being separated from their parents at the Mexican border. Over the last 2 decades, Florida is familiar with seeing its elections come down to razor-thin margins. UCF Nightly News reporter Fritz Farrow tells us how Haitian voters can prove to be what puts the candidate over the line in this state.
Presidential campaign sent to see Central Florida voters as a major piece to the puzzle of winning the White House. In the last 2 weeks, President Donald Trump, Vice President Mike Pence, and Democratic Vice Presidential nominee Kamala Harris have held events in the region. This region and the country has a growing Haitian population, as reported by the U.S. Census, and illustrated by the Haitian churches and businesses that polka dot Orlando. Haitians may end up making or breaking a candidate's chances at the presidency, especially in Florida, where elections are won on the slimmest of margins. Haitian voters tell me student loans, jobs, and race relations are the issues most important to them. UCF Public Administration graduate student García Clerjeune says she voted early for Biden, but thinks each candidate's outreach to Haitian voters can be better.
There's more could be done to focus on getting the Haitian vote. Do I think the candidates are going to do something about it? No.
Haitians may have many things in common, but when they go in to turn in their ballots, one shouldn't expect for them all to fill in the same bubbles.
UCF Integrative General Studies major Sharma Jolivin says she is disappointed with her choices for president, but will cast her vote to re-elect Trump.
I had to grade some of the words that come out of his mouth. Then he probably wouldn't be the president I would vote for. But I am voting for a president that is going to represent America as a whole.
And a word of caution.
Don't count us out. We might be a small population, but hey, when we come out in forces, we make a big difference.
In Orlando, Fritz Farrow, UCF Nightly News.
Early voting in Florida continues until Sunday, November 1st. Election Day is on November 3rd.
Rising healthcare premiums are causing some Americans to think twice about visiting the doctor. Nightly News reporter Jenna Ehrlich tells us more on how voting this election can help lower the impact of wage and healthcare issues.
Healthcare premiums are the amount people pay for their health insurance each month and can include other costs such as a deductible, co-payments, and co-insurance. eHealth Insurance reports that on average in 2020, the national health insurance premium for an Affordable Care Act plan is $456 for an individual and $1,152 for a family per month. Data from the Economic Policy Institute shows that rapidly rising premium costs continue to have a negative impact on wage growth. Senior hospitality major Rachel Carey says she can barely afford essential living expenses, let alone healthcare premiums.
I can't even begin to fathom how anybody can afford to pay for health insurance and healthcare premiums on minimum wage and still have any kind of money.
Those voting in the 2020 presidential election could help raise minimum wage in the state by voting on Amendment 2.
If 60% of Florida voters vote yes on Amendment 2, the price of minimum wage in the state would increase slowly until reaching $15 per hour in 2026. Florida virtual school economic instructor Nick Lenfeld says just raising minimum wage isn't enough.
Starts to me with controlling where the line is between the inflation and the minimum wage and making sure that people's money actually does benefit them more.
A UCF College of Medicine representative says that the program is currently helping to provide a free student-run clinic at the Grace Medical Home 2 times a week for those who are uninsured. In Orlando, Jenna Ehrlich, UCF Nightly News.
If you want more information on how your vote could help raise a minimum wage in Florida, you can visit floridafor15.org. Hey Hector, what's the weather looking like right now?
It's looking pretty good, Lexi. Let's take a look at our current conditions. Today we have a high of 81 degrees with 77% humidity and east winds blowing at 10 miles per hour. There's a 30% chance of rain tonight, so you may not need your umbrella. For tonight, we have a low of 71 degrees with humidity at 82% and east winds blowing at 5 miles per hour at 30% chance of rain. Later on in the show, we'll give you your 5-day forecast for your last week of October. Back to you guys.
Take a look overseas to see what the government in Spain is doing to help track COVID-19.
Plus, positive COVID-19 cases are rising on campus. Find out what the governor says about the status of schools in relation to public health policies. And find out how cyber attacks are increasing as the coronavirus pandemic rages on. Stay tuned to find out how you can protect yourself and your devices. And now our international correspondent Patricia Simon brings us the latest updates on what Spain is doing to control the spread of COVID-19.
Starting to use the COVID Radar mobile phone application, a free app promoted by the Spanish government. When people download this app, they can find out if they have been in contact with a person who has coronavirus. The aim of this application is to control the spread of the COVID-19. A recent study released by Smart Meta Analytics showed that only 30% of the Spanish population use this app. However, experts say that this app could be very useful if a majority of people download it. Now back to Orlando for some more nightly news.
COVID-19 numbers are on the rise, and some Knights have stepped up to help track COVID cases on campus. UCF officials put peers contact tracers in charge in hopes to make students feel more comfortable when self-reporting cases. Orange County Department of Health is training students on how to conduct contact tracing. Communication Sciences and Disorders major Desiree Rivera says she thinks it is a unique opportunity for students to give back to the community.
It's all remote on our own time. So we have a state-issued cell phone from the Department of Health that we use to make the calls. And they just kind of expect us to make around 10 hours a week.
Rivera says they only contact those who are in the UCF zip code area or around it. UCF and the Department of Health are closely monitoring COVID-19 cases in the area and are preparing to add more student contact tracers if needed.
As we continue to navigate a virtual world, cyber attacks are on the rise. Nightly News reporter Taylor Toole tells us why cybersecurity experts say this could affect our loved ones.
When you start clicking on links within emails, that's just asking for trouble.
Or that's what Ted Reynolds, director of UCF's Terrorism Studies program, says. Experts like him say cyber attacks are amping up during COVID-19 as we increasingly rely on computers to get through the day-to-day. Ransomware attacks, which infect computers by restricting user access until a ransom is paid, are a prime example of this. As experts say, these are up by 72% during the pandemic, with mobile vulnerabilities increasing by 50%.
You never know. I mean, hackers are constantly looking for new ways to access information, to compromise systems, to make money, especially with ransomware. And with people working remotely, it just makes it more advantageous for the hackers.
You might have heard about having good personal hygiene, but Reynolds tells me the best way for anyone to protect themselves from cyber attacks is by adopting what he calls good cyber hygiene. Things like using a network firewall or setting secure passwords.
Chris Donoso, a UCF alumnus and current software engineer, has been working from home since March. He says that as someone working in the cyber world, even he is guilty of using the same password for everything, so he offers this bit of advice.
Just have different passwords for different services if you can. That's the main thing to keep yourself safe. One of the main things you can do to keep yourself safe.
As for Reynolds' advice,
when you're working from home, make sure that your computers are up to date, your cybersecurity software is up to date.
In Orlando, Taylor Toole, UCF Nightly News.
If you'd like to learn more about cybersecurity, UCF offers a cybersecurity bootcamp program. To sign up, you can email cybersecurity@ucf.edu.
With a recent spike in cases on campus, students have yet to see major disciplinary actions being taken regarding mask use. Students on social media are saying they see others on campus either wearing no mask or wearing them improperly. This behavior is worrisome to many as campus positivity rates are reaching new highs. Despite this, Governor Ron DeSantis says he does not see schools as super spreaders of the virus.
And it's obviously even more clear now that schools are not drivers of spreading coronavirus. And schools need to be open. It is a bad public health policy to have schools closed.
Shows a 40% jump in cases after UCF's first home game, as well as an increase after the first round of random COVID-19 testing. UCF urges students to report instances of non-compliance to the integrity line.
Nightly reporter Katie Savico tells us Orange County's COVID-19 strike teams are out in full force, making sure businesses comply with the county's mask mandate.
Governor Ron DeSantis threw out an order allowing local governments to fine people for not wearing masks, but businesses in Orange County can still be cited for not enforcing the county's mask mandate. Code Enforcement Chief at Orange County Government, Tim Boldig, says in just the past 6 weeks, the COVID-19 strike teams have visited more than 3,000 Orange County businesses.
Certainly there are some businesses that we have to revisit for whatever reasons that they may not be compliant. But we do see that businesses are wanting to be compliant and really want to be successful.
Fun Spot America, a small theme park off I-Drive, is one business that's been cited 3 times since August for allowing people to roam the park without wearing masks. Orange County government's COVID-19 strike teams may show up to businesses completely unannounced. If a team finds a business in violation of the county's mask policy, the team will educate the business owner on workplace guidelines and supply them with face masks and hand sanitizer. Orange County Mayor Jerry Deming says it's unclear from DeSantis' order whether county commissioners can fine businesses for non-compliance.
I really don't want to have to get to that point in our community, so we have tried to be proactive and use a public awareness campaign to work with our businesses to keep them open.
Deming says he'll consider issuing fines if an outbreak is traced back to a place of business. In Orlando, Katie Sivko, UCF Nightly News.
Voldig says his team plans to make another unscheduled visit to Fun Spot America fairly soon, after finding problems on their last visit.
Coming up, throwing away old medicine can make a difference in the opioid epidemic. Find out how you can participate in the effort to prevent drug abuse.
Plus, find out what some seniors feel about having a virtual graduation. The American Medical Association is urging state leaders to take action to combat the rise in drug overdoses. Nightly News reporter Monica Sealey tells us how UCF is helping fight drug abuse.
Clean out your medicine cabinet is what the Drug Enforcement Administration is encouraging Americans to do for National Prescription Drug Take-Back Day, an initiative that aims to prevent drug abuse. The DEA reports almost 10 million Americans were misusing prescription drugs in 2018. Student Health Services spokeswoman Crystal Zavallo says this can begin at home.
So one of the ways that substance abuse can start is by experimenting with leftover controlled substances that family members, friends, etc. may have in their medicine cabinet.
Drug Take-Back Day encourages people to properly dispose of their unused medicine. This week, UCF is promoting the Student Union drop-off site where community members can get rid of leftover meds with no questions asked. Health officials hope initiatives like this will decrease the rising number in drug overdoses. Between March and May, the Overdose Detection Mapping Application Program reports 61% of participating counties saw an increase in overdoses. A CDC survey shows that stress from isolation during the pandemic is causing an increase in depression and anxiety symptoms among adults. Assistant Director of UCF Substance Use Disorder Services, Megan Giddens, says the pandemic has made it hard for some of her patients.
Individuals struggling with depression, loneliness, particularly when everything had been shut down, that it was more difficult. And so people, who are prone to using, were obviously using that as a maladaptive coping skill.
Zavallo says education and events like Drug Take-Back Day are key to preventing drug abuse and overdoses. In Orlando, Monica Sealey, UCF Nightly News.
Drug take-back drop boxes are available for use every day in the student union and the pharmacy.
This week marks the 28th Annual Diversity Week here at UCF. Many students are participating in this year's event to discuss the viral topics of racial injustices and protest. The Office of Diversity and Inclusion is bringing guest speakers to talk about UCF's diverse community of race, religion, identity, and accessibility. Director of Social Justice and Advocacy, Dr. Edwana Andrews, says although we embrace diversity, we sometimes forget its true meaning.
So when we talk about true diversity, it's beyond race, it's beyond gender, it's looking at, diversity of thought, it's looking at diversity of religion, it's looking at accessibility. And so diversity is important, especially when it's all encompassing.
With UCF home to over 70,000 students from around the world, some say Diversity Week is not just another celebration, but a reminder that there is still much work to be done.
UCF is set to hold a virtual graduation for the class of fall 2020. Nightly News reporter Lauren Margolis tells us how seniors and alumni are taking the news.
When seniors picture graduation, they see themselves walking across the stage, shaking hands, and waving to loved ones in a crowd of cheering people. Graduating in a pandemic looks a lot different.
Many students were hoping to have an in-person graduation this semester, but as the pandemic continues, UCF says it's finding other ways to celebrate. The university says it plans to host a virtual graduation similar to last semester's ceremony. UCF says it's exploring ways to improve the event for students and family. Marketing major Christopher Tews graduates this semester and says he was hopeful the university would find a way to make a face-to-face graduation happen.
UCF hosting football games, and the business school, 20% of classes are in person, but then graduation, sorry, not doable.
Tews says he's been at UCF for 7 years and feels it's upsetting to not get recognized for his degree in person. UCF alumnus and current grad student Christopher White says his graduation was in person, but his grad school graduation will be virtual. He says that although getting an in-person ceremony was nice, it didn't affect him in the long run.
Everyone's always just oh, graduation, it's so much fun. I'm honestly, it's not really. It's like a 3-hour ceremony.
White says he cares more about walking the stage for his graduate degree, but that he understands the situation and feels UCF is making the right decision to put safety first.
It's easier just to play it safe because the last thing you want is just a potential outbreak, and that's what everybody's going to remember about the graduation.
In Orlando, Lauren Margolis, UCF Nightly News.
For information on how to watch the ceremony, visit commencement.ucf.edu.
Now, Hector, I don't know about you, but I'm a sun and sand kind of girl. Is it a good weekend for a beach trip?
Monica, it sure is looking good for a good beach weekend. So let's take a look at the state's weather. At the capital in Tallahassee, we have a high of 76. Jacksonville with Duval at a 79. Central Florida right here in Orlando and Tampa in the 80s, and Miami at an 84. For tonight's lows, Tallahassee dips down to 69 with Jacksonville at 70, Miami at 78, and right here in Central Florida at the nice 70s. So let's take a look at the 5-day forecast. If you're heading out to tomorrow's football game, you're going to want to dress light because our high is 86 with a low of 72 and a 30% chance of rain, so you won't need much of an umbrella. But to start off our last week of October on Sunday, we have a high of 87, low of 71, and a 20% chance of rain. Monday has a high of 87, a low of 71, and a 20% chance of rain. And Tuesday of Wednesday with an 88, lows of 71, and a 20% chance of rain. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Hector. And coming up in sports, get the latest on UCF quarterback Mackenzie Milton and roster changes for the upcoming men's basketball season.
Knights fans, I'm Matison Little, and here's your sports update. UCF basketball is approaching quickly, but Knight fans, you will see some changes to the team's roster this season. UCF forward Colin Smith says he will be stepping off the court this season because of health concerns. Last season, Smith appeared in all 30 games, averaging over 26 minutes in each, with a season high of 23 points against the College of Charleston. Head coach Johnny Dawkins says these concerns are not COVID-related and the team will miss him.
We're rooting for Colin in every which way because he has a bright future, whether it's in basketball or without.
But it's not all bad news. Knight Nation will see a new forward on the roster this season, Sean Mobley. Mobley transferred to UCF in 2019, but sat out last season due to the NCAA transfer rules. Dawkins says he's excited for Mobley to be part of the team because of his leadership skills and versatility on the court.
You know, he just makes guys around him better. He makes really good plays, he makes the right decisions with the ball. You know, he's easy to play with.
Dawkins says he's eager to see what Mobley and the other incoming players will add to the team. Dawkins also says this is the latest in the season he hasn't had a finalized schedule. Nightly News will keep you up to date as we get more information on that. And 2 years after his leg injury, Mackenzie Milton is finally being cleared to play, but for now, he's taking the position of scout team quarterback. Milton posted these videos on Instagram of himself running plays in practice. Later, he tells ESPN reporter Andrea Adelson that he feels normal being able to play as part of the practice squad. Milton says the competitor in him is always wanting to play, but at the same time, he doesn't take it for granted. That's all the time we have for sports this week. Back to you, Monica and Lexi.
That's our time for right now. Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can always keep up with us during the week on our website, nsm.today.
And if you've got a story idea you want us to know about, send it our way. You can reach us at nightlynews@gmail.com. Thanks for watching and have a great day.